Welcome to the fiscal year 2021 Michigan Department of Education Section 31A Annual Program and Fiscal Report webinar. Let's take a look at today's agenda and outcomes of this webinar. During this presentation, the Section 31A team will provide a detailed walkthrough of the purpose of the Section 31A grant and the end of the year report, an overview of the Nexus platform, and the step-by-step directions to successfully complete the Section 31A APFR. In addition, during the webinar, we will share important contact information that you may use to contact the Section 31A team if you have additional questions after the presentation is complete. Here is the OES Financial Unit and Section 31A team members' contact information for further reference. You will see that Judy Thalen is our Nexus analyst. On our Special Populations Section 31A team, we have our Special Populations Manager, Michelle Williams, and 4 education consultants, including Dawn Carmody, Stephanie Holmes-Webster, Suzanne Grambush, and Joan Jackson as contacts for you and your LEA leaders. We are happy to assist you regarding your Section 31A technical assistance needs. As we begin our presentation today, it is important to remember that the Section 31A AtRisk Grant is a supplemental grant to support at-risk eligible students to achieve proficiency in ELA by 3rd grade, proficiency in math by 8th grade, and career and college readiness by the end of high school. Career and college readiness proficiency is measured in 11th grade with ELA, math, and science assessments to ensure that students have the necessary skills for continuing with their education or joining the workforce. In addition to the academic achievement outcomes, Section 31A Intent and Purpose also focuses on students attending school regularly to ensure that they engage in educational opportunities. Before we jump into completing the fiscal year 21 APFR, we want to make sure that everyone is aware that this report is in the Nexus platform this year instead of MEGS Plus. Much of the annual program and fiscal report has not changed, but there will be some learning with the new system. A couple important reminders when using Nexus. First, all Nexus users will need to have a My Login account. Here is a resource for creating a My Login account. There is new terminology used in Nexus compared to MEGS Plus as well. This new terminology better aligns to the state systems such as EEM, the Education Entity Master, and Sigma. Some examples of this terminology changes include, in MEGS, the term agency refers to districts, while in the Nexus platform, you will see the term organization or entity. Another example is instead of the term grant, you will see the term program used. And some examples of this is program name or program number. When you log in Nexus, there are 2 main screens you will see. First, your dashboard, and second, the application report. We will look at these samples next. When you log into your My Login screen, after the acknowledgement pop-ups are completed, the first screen you will see is your dashboard. On the dashboard, you will see 3 widgets or panels, including the My Tasks, My Opportunities, and Announcements. My Tasks is your to-do list. These are the applications or reports that have been initiated or assigned to you. My Opportunities are the programs. Formerly, these were called grants, that are available for an organization or district to apply for or initiate. This is the list of applications and reports available. Some are required, while others may be competitive or optional for your LEA. Announcements is the panel where MDE and the Nexus platform can send a variety of updates or announcements. This is a new feature in Nexus as compared to Mags Plus to offer general announcements. Stay tuned to learn more about how this panel or widget will be used. When you choose the Section 31A APFR from your My Task panel on your dashboard, the next screen you'll see will be the report on this screenshot. Let's do a quick overview of some of the features of the report. First, you'll see highlighted or circled in red that there's a blue bar across the top. This is your tabs bar. It will be accessible from anywhere in the Nexus platform. The home link takes you back to the Nexus dashboard. Administration will allow users administrative functions for the organization. The searches allows overall functions within Nexus. As you look to the far right of the blue bar, you will see also some icons. The first icon is a half circle, which is a theme setting or the background setting. This button switches the visibility settings of the report from black to white. There's also a book icon, which is where you can access the Nexus platform's manual. Lastly, on the tabs bar, you will see your user's name. This allows you to access your user profile, messages, edit the dashboard, and go to the logout links. Next, you'll see circled the report number. The report or application number will share some important information regarding the task you're in. The first part of the code describes the application or report. So in this number, you will see 31A is identified. Then it shows which fiscal year and the organization's district code. When hovering over the ID, you will see the application or report name, the current status of the task, your role in the organization, and the due date. If you click on the report number anywhere in the application, it will take you back to the landing page or document overview timeline. Next, let's look at the form slide menu. For this demo, I've collapsed the forms headings on the form slide menu to ensure that you could see them all in this screenshot. Please be aware that when you enter the report or application, they will be fully expanded. The Forms menu is a navigation tool with links that will allow you to move to a new location in the task. Be aware, if utilizing the Form slide menu, you are going to want to utilize the Save button in the top right corner to ensure that your forms are saved in each move. Without using the Save button, any data entered on that main screen may be lost. Next, there's the main screen. This is the portion of the screen that will display each new form as you navigate through the reports or applications forms. Additional tool buttons. These additional tool buttons can be found in the top right-hand corner of the main screen, just below your username in the green banner. Depending on the form that you are in, you may see additional tool buttons including New Note, Save, Add, or Delete. Lastly, I want to highlight the progression buttons. Previous and Next buttons are available at the bottom of some forms. Generally, when using these buttons, you will see a spinning saving icon displayed, which indicates the form you were just working on is being saved. If you do not see a Save button in the additional tools buttons location in the top right-hand corner, and when you use your progression buttons, the saving icon does not appear, check the current status of your report or application. Or if you are an authorized user level 4, ensure that the task has been assigned to you. we will explore later, but if you do not see that saving icon, your information inputted may not be saved. Now, let's take a closer look at the Section 31A form slide menu. So as we take a deeper dive into the form slide menu, when you expand the form menu, the first section is called Forms. These are specialized components of the Section 31A APFR. There are 3 subsections in the Form section of the slide menu. And all 3 forms in the first section is required by all LEAs. So starting at the very top, the first form is called Cover Page. On this form, you will confirm your entity's name and address. If this information is incorrect, you will need to have your EEM administrator update EEM. Then you complete the main contact and secondary contact person by selecting the correct contact available in Nexus. The next 2 forms in this section are called Important Information and Assurances and Certifications. In order to complete and submit the report, you must review both of these forms. For the Section 31 APFR, the only action required on these 2 forms is to click the form and read the important information and assurances and certifications. There are no checkboxes or text boxes to complete on either of these screens. And once you reviewed and read the screens, a reviewed icon next to the form name on the slide menu will become checked to indicate that you have completed that form. You can see that on the important information. Next to it is the checked icon on this PowerPoint. The Section 31A APFR Help Guide will be uploaded into Nexus shortly and will be very helpful to complete the report. The second subsection are the 4 subsections or 4 sections or forms of the Section 31A Annual Program and Fiscal Report that will describe how the district spent this grant during the current 2020-21 grant cycle, including the school year and the summer 2021 programming. We will look at these forms in great detail in the step-by-step report completion component of this webinar coming up soon. After we leave the subsection called Program Information, we go to the third section called Attachments. The third subsection of the form section is optional at this time. Districts do not have to attach any miscellaneous attachments to Section 31A as supporting documentation. The second section of the form slide menu is called Tools. This section has a variety of tools available in this report and in many other applications in Nexus. The first tool is the landing page. This will take you to the report status timeline and the original screen you saw when entering the report. The second tool is the Add Edit People. This is the tool where the report can be assigned to other users in your organization or district. This tool will be necessary for an authorized official, a level 5, to assign the Section 31A APFR to an authorized user. Until an authorized official assigns the authorized user the task, the user will not have access to the Save button or be able to save the entered data. The next 3 tools include the Status History tool, Modification Summary, and the Attachment Repository. These tools will not be used frequently when completing the Section 31A Annual Program and Fiscal Report, due to this being an end-of-the-year report and not an application that requires multiple modifications. These may be useful tools if the district requests to amend their report for accuracy accuracy, in September after final summer expenditures have been determined, or if modifications are requested by the Section 31A consultant team during a monitoring or auditing finding. The last two tools in this section are Notes and Print Document. The Notes tool is a summary of all of the notes that have been written in the report on any form. The notes are like the former review comments in MEGS Plus. The Print Document tool is available to print the entire report from one screen. This brings us to the last two sections on the form slide menu: the status options and related documents. First, status options section. In this section of the slide menu, the user completing the report will see all of the currently available options to change the status of the report. Some status changes may include submit, cancel, or modify. So in this screenshot, you will see that the options that are available is submitting the report to MDE or canceling the report, which will delete it out of Nexus. The reason these two options are available is due to the current status of the report. When hovering over the report number or looking at the landing page, you will see the current status of the APFR is report in progress. Please note that our team recognizes that the status option buttons are currently in a past tense statement. Please don't let this confuse you, as it does not mean that it has already been completed, but instead that it is the current option to choose. So for example, if you have completed all the forms and are ready to submit the report to MDE, this can be done by clicking on the Report Submitted link to change the status to Report Submitted. When changing the status of the report, you will get a confirmation pop-up box to confirm the status change. It is also recommended to go back to the landing page or document overview screen to confirm the report is submitted. The last section of the form slide menu is related documents. For the Section 31A APFR, this section has no action required and is not used in this end of the year report. Related documents is a general Nexus heading and tool. And in other OES applications, such as the consolidated application, or in the future Section 41 applications, this function may be utilized. So as we leave the Nexus overview, there's a few important things I would like you to know about Nexus. First, like in MEGS, there are different user levels. Authorized officials 5, authorized users 4. Authorized users 4 will need to be assigned to the Section 31A APFR in order to receive a Save button and complete the forms. As reviewed earlier, this can be done in the Add Edit People tool. Hovering over the report's ID will allow you to see the current status of the report and your role in the LEA. Clicking on that report's number or ID will take you back to the landing page. If you go back to the landing page, please remember to save whatever form you're on using that green button in the right-hand corner. And remember to save each page before you progress to the next. It's just a safety precaution as we learn the new system. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Suzanne.
Thank you, Dawn. To support completion of the Section 31A APFR and to ensure you provide comprehensive data that accurately reflects your planning, programming, and use of funding, teams will want to consider including representatives from your program office, business office, and nutrition services office. Important documents to reference, both when reporting and throughout your ongoing planning process, include continuous improvement plans, end of year Section 31A expenditure reports, program planning information, including program costs, estimated summer program costs, grade levels served, and student counts. When reporting the number of students who were served or who benefited from programming utilizing these funds, you will report the total student count served, as well as the number of students in that count who were eligible for free or reduced priced meals. In most cases, these numbers will not be the same, as there will be at-risk eligible students served or impacted who qualify in areas other than eligibility for free or reduced priced meals. As you can see, and was mentioned earlier, under the form slide is the LEA's cover page option. The cover page populates with information from the Education Entity Master, including entity name and address. And there are fields for you to include your main contact person, as well as your secondary contact person from your district. You can select these from a drop-down list from your district-assigned Nexus users. Once you have ensured this information is accurate, you can choose Next Form at the bottom of the page. The next two forms are important information and assurances and certifications. Here you will find information about the use of this report, the section-by-section breakdown, submission requirements, MDE contact information, and general grant information. LEAs are required to review this information prior to submission of the APFR. Our team is in the process of having the APFR help guide uploaded into the Nexus platform. It will be helpful to download and print this guide to assist you as you complete each step in the APFR process. As a reminder, Section 31A is a state aid grant designated for the current state fiscal year. The State School Aid Act allocates these funds to be spent during the current allocation year. Funds not spent during the allocation year may be carried over and would be available to be spent during the following grant year. Any funds not spent in the following year would be forfeited. Similar to federal funding, the state funding follows the first in, first out accounting rule. To illustrate, during the 2021 school year, if an LEA had any Section 31A 2019-20 carryover, these funds would be expended first before the new allocation would be spent. It is important that business offices and program offices have written procedures that align to various accounting and program requirements for accurate accounting and program planning. For the purpose of end of the year reporting on the Section 31A APFR, it's important that districts report the Section 31A expenditures for the current school year and any funds to be expended for at-risk summer programming that the current year's grant will fund. Because the APFR is due on July 15th, as required by state legislation, the summer programming will likely extend beyond this due date. It is important to estimate and report anticipated costs. Again, any Section 31A funds not expended by the end of the district's summer programming, which is generally August 31st, will become carryover into the 21-22 school year. Since Section 31A expenditures are reported after planning and not submitted as an application, there is no formal amendment period. Since summer expenditures are estimates, LEAs are encouraged to reach out to the Section 31A consultant team if modifications are needed due to changes in summer program estimates versus actual expenditures. The APFR and the help guide are arranged in 4 sections to reflect the divisions of the report. Section 1, the LEA compiled report, includes Part A, which is Section 31A carryover and current year expenditures at a glance. Part B includes populated calculations, and Part C is where LEAs indicate if they have utilized school-wide reform. Section 2 is where districts list direct instructional supports, secondary program expenditures, direct instructional supports provided during the day, after school, and in extended school year opportunities. This is also where districts will answer 2 questions regarding their implementation of a multi-tiered system of support. Section 3 is for direct non-instructional supports, including social emotional services and health-related supports, as well as funding to support professional learning and parent, family, community engagement. Section 4 is where districts will reflect expenditures related to their school breakfast programs. Again, before we begin the directions for completion, keep in mind that the APFR help guide will assist you along the way. On the slide menu, you see Section 1, District Compiled Report. Section 1 includes 3 parts, A, B, and C, and we will take a look at each of those parts. To start, Part A, this contains a 2-year at a glance of allocation, carryover, and spending. Fields are populated to display previous year's allocation, allocation spent, and carryover. Data is uploaded from the previous grant cycle's final allocation and the APFR. Here you will want to ensure that estimated summer expenditures were accurate and actual. If discrepancies are noted, please send notification to the general Section 31A email box to request an amendment to the prior year's report. Once the pre-populated numbers are accurate, the reporter will enter the total carryover spent in Table 1, Line 4. In Table 2, Line 3, districts indicate the total current year allocation spent. As previously explained, the first in, first out rule of carryover applies and requires 100% of the carryover listed in Line 3 to be spent in the current grant cycle. If the LEA spent less than the carryover for the entire grant cycle, it will be necessary for the reporter to contact the Section 31A team, as the unspent funds will need to be returned to the state. Please be sure to enter the number of schools in the district using Section 31A funding. As the reporter, you will complete 3 areas: carryover spent, current year allocation spent, and the number of schools utilizing Section 31A funding. As we go through Section 1, Part B, notice that these lines are populated for the LEA, with the exception of, at the bottom, the total unduplicated number of at-risk pupils served. Lines 1 through 6 will be zeros and are generated by the system. But once Section 2, direct instructional supports, Section 3, direct non-instructional supports, and Section 4, the school breakfast program, have been completed, these areas will populate with the totals in this section. Line 7, enter the total number of unduplicated at-risk pupils served. Unduplicated headcount means that each student served is counted only once during the fiscal year, regardless of the number of services provided. In order to fund school-wide reform efforts with Section 31A funds, LEAs are required to meet the legislated criteria of 40% or more students within the building who are at-risk eligible. They must utilize evidence-based practices guided by their needs assessment and include parent and family engagement strategies, as well as documentation of the at-risk program planning and continuous improvement process. LEAs that utilize school-wide reform must check the box indicated. If they check the box, they must also indicate which strategies were used or fill in the box for the strategy if it's not listed. One strategy minimally is required. If the box is checked and no strategy is designated, the LEA will receive an error message and will not be able to move on to the rest of the report. All LEAs, even those that are school-wide, are responsible for reporting in all sections of the report. The school-wide total does not have to match the total expenditures. And now we will move to my colleague, Joan.
Thank you. All right. In section 2, direct instructional supports, your district will report on the direct instructional supports that were provided to at-risk eligible students during the day, after school, or during extended school year opportunities. Areas in which funding may have been used include secondary program planning, direct instructional supports or MTSS K-12, and intervention supports. There are also 2 narrative response questions related to implementation of the district's multi-tiered system of supports or MTSS. Let's start with secondary program planning. The first table in section 2 includes categories related to programming for at-risk eligible students in grades 9 through 12. The district will report direct instructional supports for secondary program planning here first. The program categories have not changed from previous years and reflect allowances for supplemental secondary expenditures of Section 31A funding. In columns A through C, report the actual grade levels served, the total number of at-risk eligible pupils served, and the number of students who were also eligible for free and reduced price meals. Column D is where you will report the amount of Section 31A funds that were spent on these services. If your district did not use Section 31A funding for any of these categories, leave all the columns blank. Let's take a look at some helpful hints for reporting in the secondary program planning section. This information is also located in the help guide document for your reference on page 3. In section 2, districts will report all supplemental allowable costs related to specific secondary programming, secondary meaning grades 9 through 12, such as staffing, materials, transportation, and allowable tuition costs and fees. There are 9 APFR secondary program areas listed in the table on the far right of this slide, which include International Baccalaureate, Advanced Placement Coursework, English Learner Service Programs, Credit Recovery, Career and Technical Coursework, Dual Enrollment Programs, Alternative Education Programs, SAT Prep Coursework, and GED coursework. Any cost related to programming provided to grades 9 through 12 that has been reported in this part of the APFR table should not be included in any other section of the APFR to avoid duplication. The key points to remember in this reporting area are that supports and services must be designed to reduce or eliminate barriers for at-risk eligible students to access these programs. If you or your district team has any secondary program planning context-specific question, please feel free to contact our team members. Now we are moving on to step 2. This information is on page 3 of the help guide. Step 2 refers to direct instructional supports, MTSS K-12. This is the area where you will report expenditures for the following: instructional coaches, behavioral coaches, MTSS coach or coordinator, any supplemental core content area teachers in grades K-12, instructional materials purchased with Section 31A funds, excluding those that were already reported in the secondary 9 through 12 area, academic paraprofessionals, behavioral paraprofessionals, or a certified behavioral interventionist. As we mentioned before, in columns A through C, report the actual grade levels served, the total number of at-risk eligible pupils served, the number of students who were also eligible for free or reduced price meals, and then column D is where you will report the amount of Section 31A funding that were spent on these services. The next slide will provide some helpful hints on completing this section of the report. We are still on step 2, direct instructional supports MTSS reporting. What is reported here and what is not? In this table, districts will report direct instructional supports, including staffing related to MTSS, supplemental content area teaching staff, such as a co-teacher, paraprofessionals related to academics and behavior, and instructional materials that were not already reported under secondary programming. The table on the far right lists the allowable direct instructional support categories. You'll see instructional coach, behavioral coach, the ones I just mentioned on the previous slide. One point of clarification, an interventionist would be a person with a BA or a BS degree, someone with additional certification, background in reading or mathematics, employed by the district in Tier 2 or Tier 3 intervention supports. A paraprofessional would be a person who may not necessarily have a degree, but has 60 or more credit hours to support, and they support in classrooms either academically or behaviorally. Certified behavior interventionist would be certified personnel having a degree with credentials and background in functional behavioral assessments or such like that, that is employed by the district. Again, if you have specific context-related questions for your district, please contact us via phone or email. We have moved on to step 3 in our APFR, intervention supports during the day after an extended school year. In these sections of the table, districts will report certified teachers that provide intervention or tutoring in the areas of reading, writing, math, social studies, or science that are funded with Section 31A money. Paraprofessionals or interventionists providing supplemental English learner program services to EL students in grades K through 8 are also reported here. As before, columns A through C, you report actual grade levels, total number of at-risk eligible pupils, and the number of students who are also eligible for free and reduced price meals. Column D is always where you will report the amount of Section 31A funds. And remember, if your district did not use Section 31A funding for these categories, just leave those columns blank. Remember to avoid duplication that academic or behavioral paraprofessionals were reported previously in Section 2, Step 2 under direct instruction. Instructional materials related to intervention were reported in the previous section also. Supports for English learners in grades 9 through 12 were already reported under secondary programming, so you wouldn't include them here. Let's take a look at the helpful hints for completing this section. The left column of the first table reiterates what we discussed on the previous slide as to what will be reported under intervention supports during the day, an extended day, or extended school year. The center column indicates what will not be reported in this section. The table on the far right lists the allowable support categories. Those are reading, writing, math, science, social studies, and English learner program services. Section 2 also includes a 2-question survey regarding the LEA's implementation of a multi-tiered system of supports, or MTSS. The survey is designed to gather narrative responses that should be provided from the district level perspective. Through these 2 questions, the MDE is asking for specific information regarding the district's provider of MTSS professional learning and/or technical assistance, and the fidelity measures utilized within the district to measure the effectiveness of program implementation. Let's take a deeper look at each question. Question 1 reads, Explain from where the LEA is receiving professional learning and technical assistance to support the implementation of MTSS. So question 1 is asking for very specific information about who is providing the LEA with professional learning and technical assistance that is directly related to their multi-tiered system of supports. Who is helping to unpack MTSS, understand what implementation with fidelity looks like, and determine how to plan for ongoing improvement. Sources of support may include the ISD or RISA, a vendor, or My MTSS, formerly My Blissy, to name just a few examples. If you respond with the name of an ISD or individual, include the role of the individual and the type of training or the type of training. Please note that answers such as not applicable are red flags, since the implementation of MTSS is required to be eligible for Section 31A funds. We understand that all LEAs are on a continuum in terms of implementation of MTSS. That being said, answers such as not applicable could be interpreted as an LEA no longer being eligible to receive Section 31A funds. Please remember that these two questions require a response and may not be left blank. An answer must be provided in order for the LEA to submit the APFR. If the LEA needs assistance, please contact the Section 31A team. Here we'll look at examples of what would represent appropriate responses for question 1. The first example shows a list of personnel who provided the professional learning, followed by a list of topics covered. Here is a list of the ISD and the list of topics covered. Similarly, the next example indicates how a district may respond to indicate their plan moving forward if professional learning or technical assistance has not yet been in place. Keep it simple and make a list rather than providing a paragraph for a response. This slide demonstrates non-examples of responses to question 1. As we mentioned, not at this time or NA are not acceptable responses. Generic descriptions that do not provide specific information about the source of professional learning and the subject matter aligned to ongoing improvements in implementation of a multi-tiered system of support would also not be appropriate. Now let's look at question 2. Question 2, what tool or tools is the LEA using to measure the implementation of MTSS as intended? The second question related to MTSS asks for specific information regarding the fidelity measures being used within the district to measure the effectiveness of the program implementation of MTSS. What tool is the district using to examine and reflect on their MTSS? Fidelity assessments are used to keep track of which features are in place and to what extent. These may include a tiered fidelity inventory, a district-generated rubric, or the MTSS self-reflection tool, among others. Here are examples of what would represent appropriate responses for question 2. The first example is a list of the fidelity measures that a district may be using. Keep it simple by providing a list. The second example demonstrates how a district may respond to indicate their plan moving forward if a fidelity measure has not yet been in place. Here are some non-examples for question 2. As previously mentioned, not at this time is not an acceptable response. Additionally, stating that Section 31A funds are not being used to implement MTSS would not be an appropriate response. Stating a needs assessment and district planning is a generic response and does not provide enough information. And student achievement progress monitoring tools are not considered fidelity measures for MTSS and so are not an appropriate response to question 2. If you have any questions and need some assistance with these, please contact us. And now I will transition to our colleague, Dawn.
Okay, now let's take a look at Section 3, Direct Non-Instructional Supports, Part A. Additional support for this section is available in the help guide on page 4. Section 3 of the report remains the same as in previous years. As before, in columns A through C, report the actual grade levels served, the total number of at-risk eligible pupils served, and the number of students who are eligible for free or reduced price meals. Column D is where you will report the amount of Section 31A funds that were spent on each of these services. If your LEA did not use Section 31A funding for these categories, leave all columns blank. Included here is information related to expenditures for school healthcare clinics. Do not include expenditures for infrastructure as those are not allowable. Also, medical services, mental health services, counseling services, social worker, or activities to reduce chronic absenteeism. For Section 3, Part B, you will begin by choosing either yes or no to indicate if your LEA has 50% or more students eligible for free or reduced price meals. You do this by choosing either yes or no on the radio buttons provided. Part B contains rows to include expenditures for school security, and that is just for those districts who qualify. Also, for crisis intervention and anti-bullying efforts that have been funded with Section 31A funds, and for parent, family, and community engagement. Keep in mind, parent and family engagement efforts are required for those LEAs using funding for school-wide programming. If your LEA has opted to spend funding on security, ensure you are within the 20% cap. In Part C, report Section 31A spending for professional learning related to your multi-tiered system of supports, implementation of the coaching model that supports a tiered framework, and professional learning related to Read by Grade 3 law. Include the grade levels to be impacted by this professional learning and the amount of Section 31A funds spent in each of the categories listed. Keep in mind, legislation limits funding for professional learning to 7.5% of allocation, though professional learning designed to support instructional or behavioral coaches is not subject to the 7.5% cap.
If the LEA serves breakfast, complete the school breakfast program section in the following manner. The number of pupils eligible for free and reduced price meals will be pre-populated. You, as the reporter, will enter the monetary amount per pupil up to $10 that the LEA has allocated per pupil for the breakfast to supplement the school breakfast program. In the last column of the table, the Nexus platform will calculate the total amount of the formula based on the eligible pupils times the per pupil breakfast allocation entered. This will determine the LEA's Section 31A expenditure to supplement the school breakfast program. For the Section 4, there are a few LEAs, a few districts that are exempt, and they will just check the box to indicate that they are exempt from supplementing their school breakfast program. The only school districts that are exempt from serving or from supplementing the school breakfast programs are those districts that are not serving breakfast based on the school code and being under 20% economically disadvantaged. They have gone through the appropriate channels to get their school board approval to not serve school breakfast programs. All LEAs that are not exempt, don't meet the exemption requirements, must report supplementing their school breakfast programs. And as stated previously, it can be anywhere from 1 penny up to $10 per pupil on school breakfast. If you do have additional questions about ways that the district and Section 31A can supplement the school breakfast program, please contact the MDE Office of School Health and Nutrition. The number of pupils eligible that would be pre-populated into your Nexus Section 31A APFR is the economically disadvantaged student count that was used in the current allocation formula. So based on the Section 31A allocation, this student count for general allocation or traditional allocation formulas will be the previous school year's fall count data. For this 2020-2021 grant cycle, the fall October 2019 ED count was used. In order to support districts in planning Section 31A funds, especially the school breakfast program supplemental cost, this ED student allocation count can easily be found on the MDE Program Allocations website. This is the same website that districts refer to when looking for their estimated and final federal Title I, II, III, IV, and V allocations. The current economically disadvantaged student count for Section 31A can be found in the 2020-2021 estimated allocation section of the website and in the specific file called 2020-21 estimated Section 31A at-risk spreadsheet. When going into that spreadsheet, the fourth column of the spreadsheet is the October 2019 ED count used in the district Section 31A allocation formula. Please note that districts that are designated CEP or Community Eligibility Provision and districts that are in an alternate agreement with other districts that operate their nutrition programs and grants must still spend some amount of money of their Section 31A funding on supplementing the school breakfast program. These supplemental funds should be part of the district procedures for consulting with the nutrition office leadership to enrich the school breakfast program. It is important for our Section 31A team to share some of the announcements and collaborations across the Michigan Department of Education. So this spring, on April 28th, 2021, the Michigan Department of Education shared important information regarding additional child nutrition program waivers that were announced federally. We know that these waivers and the great nutrition programming that will be available to our students in the next year can impact our district procedures and other state laws, including Section 31A. So let's look at some of the key impact points to consider about these nutrition waivers. So when school districts run child nutrition programs with the waivers such as the Seamless Summer Program, all students will be eligible to receive nutritious meals at no cost. In addition, the districts will be reimbursed first for all student meals at a higher rate for the served meals. Due to the meals being automatically reimbursed to LEAs utilizing these programs, there is no legislative requirement for the nutrition departments to collect economic status documentation, including the household information reports for CEP schools or the free and reduced price meal applications for the districts that get reimbursed as a requirement for their traditional nutrition programs. Many districts have shared concerns about parents not returning the economic status documentation while all students are receiving meals for free. We know various state laws may be impacted when this documentation is not available to the districts, including other educational grants like Section 31A, Title I, especially when it comes to rank and serving buildings, E-rate, and grants with matching funds based on poverty rates, community program, and unknown potential impacts. Due to legislative Section 31A allocation formula being directly tied to ED counts in a district, allocations of this grant do vary year to year. Which brings us to the note on the last bullet, bullet C. It will be key that multiple leader stakeholders in the district, including but not limited to representatives from the nutrition office, business office, curriculum and programming, building level administration, and or pupil accounting should collaborating on new messaging for parents and strategies for collecting the necessary economically disadvantaged documentation. I also want to remind the leadership teams to reflect on the past data collections for what worked and what is the potential impact of not having the documentation. Please keep in mind that ED documentation, such as the household information report or free and reduced lunch applications, is only one way that students and households are determined as economically disadvantaged. There are 4 other ways in Michigan that students and households may be determined as ED, including direct certification from DHHS or being identified in the following 3 categorical eligibilities: homeless, foster care, and migratory children. Our team has heard of a number of districts that have been able to successfully collect the economic status documentation by adjusting the messaging to parents and changing some procedures to share the documents throughout the summer open houses and or working with their meal service vendors to get online digital forms if appropriate and secure. There are some resources even on the MDE CEP website that including the household information report template that districts can also use with a parent letter. So now that you've completed the initial forms and the complete APFR, you're ready, getting close to ready to submit. So now that you've completed the initial forms, like the cover page, the important information, and the assurances and certifications, as well as the 4 sections of the APFR, you have one more step before you can submit. After completing and saving the Section 4 School Breakfast Program form, you will have to return to Section 1 District Compiled Report to do one last update. When you are on the Section 1 screen, review the total in Part A, Table 3, and ensure that it matches the total in Part B, Line 6. If the total expenditures match, that means the itemized screens that the itemized services and supports align to the total grant spent. You are ready to save this Section 1 one last time by clicking on the Save button in the top right-hand corner of the main screen. Once the populated totals are saved, you should notice that all attention or error messages have disappeared. You are ready to submit the annual program and fiscal report. Using the form slide menu, go to the status options and click on Report Submitted to update the LEA's report to the new status. This PowerPoint slide is a reminder of how the status options section will look. Once you click on the Report Submitted button, a pop-up box will appear. There are 2 different kinds of pop-up boxes that may appear. The first is a confirmation box, assuring you want to submit the report to the Michigan Department of Education. If you are ready to submit, it will ask you, are you ready to change the report from review and report in progress to report submitted? You will want to click OK and the report will be submitted. A second pop-up box, if it's could pop up instead of the confirmation box. The second type of pop-up box that may appear is an attention box. This is similar to the global error box in MEGS Plus. If an attention box pops up, it will also have the links to the forms that have the errors that need to be addressed. Be aware that if there are any errors on a form, the icon next to the form's name on the form slide menu will be an exclamation point and not a check. Please address any errors, save each of the new forms, and then submit the report again by choosing the report submitted link in the status options section. Thank you for viewing this webinar. Feel free to join us for our virtual office hours or contact the Section 31A team members if you have specific context-related questions. Our virtual office hours will be on our Section 31A website, listed by the time and date that we are available. Contact analyst Judy Thanglin if you have questions regarding allocations and pre-populated data or the Nexus platform. Have a great day.